Hey, Pastor Owens here, Westside Baptist Church in Pacifica, California. And today we're 1 John chapter 2, verse number 3 through 6, talking about the fruit of fellowship. Verse 3 through 6 says, "And hereby we do know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. He that saith he abideth in him, ought himself also so to walk, even as he walked." Let's break it down. He starts off, hereby we do know that we know him. The evidence of someone knowing God in fellowship with him is that that someone will keep God's commandments. A simple, loving obedience is a natural result of fellowship with God. We have a gracious advocate in heaven, Jesus Christ. We have an open invitation from Jesus to restoration through confession, and a promise that when we confess, he is faithful and just. Yet, those things do not make a converted man careless about the commandments of God. God changes the heart when you got saved. He took away your stony heart. He gave you a heart of flesh. And at your conversion, he wrote his law upon your heart. Those who think that God's grace will lead men into sin don't know what they're talking about. And I question when somebody talks about, well, if we're under grace, we can just keep doing this. I question whether they ever truly tasted of God's grace. Am I really going to hate God and his commandments because he is kind to me? Am I going to curse him by disobeying him because he blesses me with grace? I don't think so. He goes on, he says, he that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. The truth of this is so certain that if one does not live a life marked by obedience, then his claim to fellowship with God can be and ought to be challenged. You say, well, I know him, I know God. However, knowing about Christ and knowing Christ are two very different things. I know a lot about the President of the United States, but I don't know him. We may know very much about a lot of men, though we do not really know any of them. And by the way, you cannot be saved by knowing about Christ. You must know him, his very self, and you must trust him. So John goes on and he says, but whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. John makes the link between our obedience and our love for God. He connects them together. Perfected, he says. The idea of perfection here is the idea of maturity. Perfected love for God will show itself in obedience to God. It will show itself in the presence of obedience in the one who claims to love God. By the way, when we're obedient to him, it proves our love, it perfects our love, and it gives us assurance that we are in Jesus Christ. Hereby know we that we are in him. Mark it down. When someone becomes a Christian, there is always a change in his relationship with sin. Because when a Christian truly gets saved, sin is not eliminated in the believer until he comes to glory. We understand that. But his relationship to sin is changed. When he truly becomes a Christian, everything about sin changes for him. A Christian no longer brags about his sin as he once did. A Christian no longer plans to sin as he once did. A Christian no longer fondly remembers his sin as he once did. Are you getting the point here? A Christian never fully enjoys his sin. A Christian no longer is comfortable in his habitual sin. And by the way, the Christian becomes horrified at sin because he has moved on in his love to Christ and his obedience to Christ. John says, he that saith he abideth in him, ought himself also so to walk, even as he walked. The thought is brought around here in full circle for us. When we are abiding in Christ, we will walk as he walked. We will live lives of obedience and love. If you want to walk as he walked, you need to begin by abiding in him. Now, we aren't called to imitate the way Jesus walked on the water, okay? We are called to follow his everyday life. In his everyday life was him walking with God the Father, okay, walking in the Spirit's power and walking in faithfulness and walking a faithful and disciplined life. And he was walking in obedience to the will of the Father. That's why he prayed, not my will, but thine be done. The point is that the one who knows God will increasingly lead a righteous life. For God is righteous. It does not mean that he will be sinless. John has already shown that anyone who claims that he is sinless is lying. It simply means that he will be moving in a direction marked by the righteousness of God. And that's what John is talking about here. If a Christian does not do this, if he is not increasingly dissatisfied with his sin, he is not a child of God. What he claims, it's not there. He's a liar.